My friends, allow me to suggest to you that the way you begin your morning determines the direction of your entire day. Life itself is a battlefield, and every day presents itself as a contest between light and darkness, between despair and hope, between defeat and victory. The book of Isaiah reminds us of this profound truth, that they who seek the Lord early shall find strength, that they who wait upon the Lord shall mount up with wings as eagles. If victory is your desire, then the morning is the first front line where the battle must be fought and won. Too many people underestimate the sacredness of the morning hour. They imagine it is simply a transition from sleep to work, from rest to labor. But I tell you, it is far more than that. The morning is the womb of the day, and what you plant in that sacred soil will bear fruit until the evening. It is in the morning that your mind is most impressionable, most unguarded, and most open to suggestion. The philosophers of old understood this. They would rise before the sun, not merely to greet the day, but to shape it. In the quiet stillness, they aligned their thoughts, meditated on purpose, and resolved their actions. Modern psychology now affirms what Isaiah proclaimed centuries earlier. The morning hours frame the emotional and spiritual climate of your day. If you begin with fear, worry, or distraction, those seeds will multiply. But if you begin with prayer, with clarity, with the consciousness of God's presence, you establish a foundation that cannot easily be shaken. Prayer in the morning is not merely a ritual, it is a declaration of alignment. It is saying to God, before I face men, I choose to face you. Before I consult the opinions of the world, I consult the wisdom of heaven. This act of prioritization shapes the hierarchy of your day. It reminds your spirit that you are not led by circumstances, but by divine providence. Without this anchoring, you are like a ship at sea without a rudder, tossed about by the waves of meetings, deadlines, opinions, and sudden crises. But when you anchor in the morning, when you bow your head before you raise your hand, when you bend your knees before you stretch your ambitions, then no matter what storms come, you remain steady. Isaiah himself was no stranger to the storms of life. He lived in a time of political turmoil, spiritual decay, and national uncertainty. Yet, in that very context, he spoke of the power of seeking God early. It is not accidental that he used language of waiting, of seeking, of rising with expectation. He understood that life is not conquered by accident. Victory is intentional, and intention must be demonstrated at the beginning of the day. For if you cannot rule your morning, you cannot hope to rule your day. And if you cannot rule your day, you cannot hope to rule your destiny. Think about the great leaders of history. They all understood the sanctity of the morning. Some would rise to meditate, others to write, others to pray. But common among them was this: they seized the morning, and the morning gave them mastery over the day. And yet, in our time, many surrender their mornings to distraction. The first thing they do is reach for the phone, scroll through messages, and open their hearts to the anxieties of the world before they have opened their souls to the peace of God. Is it any wonder that anxiety rules, that depression reigns, that confusion spreads? How can the spirit be anchored when the first voice it hears is not the voice of God, but the noise of men? When you pray in the morning, you are not merely speaking words into the air, you are shaping consciousness. You are reprogramming the mind. You are giving instructions to your soul. Today I shall not fear. Today I shall not stumble. Today I shall not be enslaved by the opinions of others. Because today I have consulted the one who rules above all powers. Prayer trains the mind to see differently. Where others see obstacles, you see opportunities. Where others see defeat, you see divine preparation, and this shift is not accidental. It is cultivated through the discipline of morning devotion. Some may ask, but can I not pray in the evening? Can I not speak to God at any time? Indeed, God hears you at all times. But the evening prayer is retrospective. It reflects on what has already happened. The morning prayer is prospective. It anticipates, it sets direction, it arms you for what lies ahead. Imagine a soldier going into battle without putting on his armor first. That is what it is like to walk into your day without morning prayer. By the time you try to defend yourself, the arrows have already struck. But the wise soldier rises early, equips himself, and then walks into the field prepared. That is the power of morning prayer. Isaiah knew this when he wrote, "He awakens me morning by morning. He awakens my ear to listen as one being taught." The morning is the classroom of the Spirit. It is where God whispers strategies, where he warns of traps, where he strengthens the weary. Those who ignore the class are left unprepared. But those who attend daily are equipped to face kings, enemies, and unseen forces with unshakable resolve. Let me put it to you plainly. The first victory you win each day is the victory over self, the victory over laziness, over distraction, over indiscipline. When you silence the urge to stay in bed a little longer and choose instead to bow in prayer, you are already declaring victory. When you silence the temptation to scroll through social media and instead scroll through the promises of Isaiah, you are already walking in power. Victory is not something that suddenly appears in the afternoon. It is born in the morning and manifests as the day unfolds. My brothers and sisters, let us move a step further. If the morning prayer is the anchor of victory, then the promises of God in Isaiah are the weapons with which we wage war. It is not enough to awaken early, to bow your head, and to whisper words into the heavens. The true power of prayer is magnified when it is married with the eternal promises of God. Words spoken into the air fade, but words spoken in alignment with divine covenant endure and transform. The prophet Isaiah, writing in turbulent times, did not merely comfort Israel with soft sayings. He armed them with words of fire, promises that could withstand storms, promises that could outlast kingdoms, promises that could silence every voice of fear. Take, for example, the declaration in Isaiah 54, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." This is not poetic exaggeration. This is a legal decree from the court of heaven. It does not deny that weapons will be formed, enemies will strategize, circumstances will rise like giants, fear will fashion its arrows, but the divine assurance is that none of them will succeed in their mission. To awaken every morning and declare this promise is to remind yourself that opposition is real, but defeat is not your portion. It is to program the subconscious mind against fear and train it toward courage. Modern psychology will tell you that affirmations shape thought and thoughts shape behavior. But the affirmations of men are limited. They crumble under the weight of reality. The affirmations of God, however, are eternal, for they flow from one who cannot lie. Isaiah also tells us that those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. Consider the power of this promise. To wait is not passive idleness, as some suppose. It is active trust. It is the discipline of refusing to move until God gives the signal, and what is the outcome? Strength renewed. Not merely human stamina, but divine energy. The eagle does not struggle against the wind. It rises above the storm, using the very turbulence to ascend higher. This is the psychology of divine waiting. It teaches us that adversities are not walls to stop us, but winds to lift us. Each morning when you pray, declaring this promise, you remind your soul that weariness will not be your inheritance, for God himself has pledged renewal. Let us examine another. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they shall not overflow you. When you walk through fire, you shall not be burned. Here Isaiah does not promise the absence of trials. He does not tell us there will be no waters, no rivers, no fire. On the contrary, he prepares us for their certainty, but he declares with equal certainty that these trials will not consume us. This is a philosophy of resilience that modern minds struggle to grasp. Many expect life to be free of suffering, and when suffering comes, they despair. But Isaiah calls us to a higher vision, to see trials not as death sentences, but as stages for divine companionship. To rise each morning and declare this promise is to inoculate your spirit against panic. It is to remind yourself that no river can drown you because the one who parted the Red Sea walks beside you. No fire can consume you because the one who quenched the flames for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego walks within the furnace. You see, my friends, these promises are not mere decorations of Scripture. They are weapons. They are shields to the fearful, swords to the weary, torches to those groping in darkness. And like any weapon, they must be wielded intentionally. A sword left in its sheath will never win a battle. A promise left unspoken will never silence an enemy. That is why Isaiah insists on remembering, on declaring, on speaking forth the word of the Lord. Victory does not come by vague hope. Victory comes by precise application of God's word in the exact places where fear, doubt, and opposition raise their heads. Think of the mind as a battlefield. Every day, thoughts of inadequacy, failure, and despair assault it like arrows. To meet them with silence is to concede. To meet them with mere positive thinking is to fight arrows with feathers. But to meet them with no weapon formed against me shall prosper is to raise a shield forged in eternity. To answer discouragement with they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength is to wield a sword that has never lost a war. When you speak these promises, you are not merely reciting ancient poetry. You are activating a divine principle that reorders your psychology and fortifies your spirit. But let me also remind you, the promises of God are not licenses for passivity. They are calls to alignment. For a promise is like a contract. It is binding, but it requires consent. You must step into its conditions. You cannot claim strength renewed if you refuse to wait upon the Lord. You cannot declare victory over weapons if you live outside the will of God. Promises are invitations to partnership. God says, I will, but you must also say, I believe and I obey. This is the depth Isaiah invites us into, not mere recitation, but participation. That is why every morning after prayer, you must clothe yourself with these promises. Do not leave your house spiritually naked. Dress your mind with truth. Wrap your heart in assurance. Fasten your thoughts with conviction. For when you are clothed with God's promises, you walk differently. Fear does not dictate your choices because you know you are shielded. Weariness does not dictate your pace because you know renewal is assured. And trials do not dictate your destiny because you know the flames cannot consume you. So I say to you, do not simply read Isaiah, declare Isaiah. Do not simply admire the promises, wield them. Make them your language, your breath, your confidence. Let them become so engraved in your soul that when life presses you, the promises are what come out. And when others wonder how you remain unshaken while they crumble, you will testify that it is not by your strength, but by the word of him who spoke from eternity. Each morning you have two choices, to step into the day unarmed, or to step into it with the sword and shield of God's promises. One leads to perpetual defeat, the other to unshakable victory. So I challenge you, tomorrow when you rise, declare not what the world says, but what Isaiah proclaimed. Speak it until your fears bow. Speak it until your doubts dissolve. Speak it until your environment aligns with heaven's decree. My brothers and sisters, having anchored your morning in prayer and armed your spirit with the promises of Isaiah, you must not stop there. Victory is not complete if it remains confined to the dawn. The test of morning devotion is not simply in the sweetness of prayer or in the boldness of declarations. It is in the lived reality of the hours that follow. What use is it to kneel in strength at sunrise, only to collapse in weakness by noon? Isaiah reminds us that those who trust in the Lord shall soar on wings like eagles. They shall run and not grow weary. They shall walk and not faint. That is not just a poetic assurance, it is a philosophy of living. It is a call to walk through the day with renewed strength and boldness, to live in such a way that the fragrance of your morning encounter with God lingers in every step you take, in every word you speak, in every challenge you confront. The human condition is one of constant depletion. Energy drains, hope wanes, courage fades. That is why people stumble through life, dragging their feet, barely holding on. But Isaiah offers us a different paradigm. He says you need not live as one who merely survives. You can live as one who soars. To soar is to live above the turbulence, not by denying its existence, but by mastering it. The eagle does not pray that the wind will cease. It spreads its wings and uses the very force that could destroy it as the force that carries it higher. So it is with those who draw strength from the Lord each morning. They are not exempt from trials, but they refuse to be defined by them. They use opposition as fuel. They use criticism as sharpening. They use difficulty as elevation. Consider the psychology of boldness. A timid spirit enters the day with hesitation, afraid of the unknown, weighed down by the shadows of yesterday's failures. But a bold spirit, renewed by prayer and promises, walks into the day with conviction. Boldness is not arrogance, it is confidence rooted in trust. It is the certainty that the one who walked with you at dawn is still walking with you at midday. Boldness is not loudness, it is steadiness. It is the quiet but unshakable conviction that no matter what voices rise against you, no matter what weapons are formed, your destiny remains intact. And let us be clear, without boldness, even the greatest promises remain theory, for promises are meant to be acted upon, and action requires courage. History has shown us that greatness belongs not to the fearful, but to the bold. Those who rise above mediocrity are those who dare to walk differently, to speak differently, to confront obstacles with an unyielding spirit. Isaiah calls us into that arena of greatness. He reminds us that God does not renew our strength so that we may sit in silence. He renews our strength so that we may walk into the world as ambassadors of his power, carrying ourselves not as victims, but as victors. Morning prayer arms you, God's promises equip you, but strength renewed must manifest in the courage to live differently. Otherwise, your preparation becomes wasted potential. There will always be forces that try to drain you. Some will be external difficult people, unforeseen crises, sudden disappointments. Others will be internal self, doubt, fear, discouragement. But when you rise each morning, and walk in renewed strength, you no longer allow these forces to dictate your tempo. You determine your pace. You refuse to be rushed by fear or slowed by doubt. You march with purpose, and that purpose itself becomes a shield. Boldness is not the absence of obstacles. It is the refusal to be stopped by them. You see, every day is an arena of confrontation. You will confront voices that say you cannot, circumstances that suggest you should not, and doubts within that whisper you are not. But if you have begun with God, and if you hold His promises, then you must also walk with the determination that you will not faint. To faint is to give up halfway, to abandon the path before reaching the prize, and many faint because they have not internalized the rhythm of divine renewal. Isaiah declares that those who trust in the Lord will run and not be weary. This means life is not meant to be endured with drudgery. It is meant to be embraced with vitality. When your strength comes from God, you do not run out, you run on. Yet understand this, renewed strength is not simply about personal endurance. It is about being a vessel through which others can see the reality of God. When you walk boldly, others take courage. When you stand firm, others find stability. Your daily life becomes a sermon that preaches louder than words. Some will never read Isaiah, but they will read you. And the question is, will they see a life marked by fear and fainting, or a life marked by faith and boldness? If you rise in the morning declaring that no weapon formed shall prosper, then let your walk in the afternoon prove that conviction. Let your demeanor demonstrate that you truly believe rivers will not overflow you, and fire will not consume you. The secret, my friends, is consistency. Victory is not achieved in one morning or one declaration. It is built day by day, choice by choice, step by step. Boldness is not born in a moment. It is forged in the rhythm of daily trust. Each day, when you refuse to faint, you build spiritual muscle. Each time you rise above discouragement, you add to your strength, and one day you look back and realize you are no longer crawling, you are soaring. This is the trajectory Isaiah paints for us, from walking to running to flying, from mere survival to unshakable victory.